Okay, we're going to read Chapter 7 of Mr. Popper's Penguins, written by Richard and Florence Atwater. So Chapter 7 is called Captain Cook Builds a Nest. Very reluctantly, Janie and Bill had to leave Captain Cook and go to school. Mrs. Popper was busy in the kitchen, rather belatedly doing the breakfast dishes, and while she dimly realized that the penguin was going in and out of the refrigerator pretty frequently, she thought nothing of it at first. Meanwhile, Mr. Popper had abandoned his telephoning and was now busy shaving and making himself neat in honor of being the owner of such a splendid bird as Captain Cook. But the penguin, though thus neglected for the moment, was by no means idle. With the usual excitement and having to go to market earlier than usual, Mrs. Popper had not yet gotten around to straightening the house. She was an excellent housekeeper, still with 2 children like Janie and Bill and a husband with such untidy ways. There is no denying the fact that she had to pick up the place rather frequently. Captain Cook was now attending to the picking up. In the corners of every room he prowled and poked and pecked with a busy thoroughness. Into every closet he stared with his white circular eyes. Under and behind all furniture he crowded his plump figure, and little subdued cries of curiosity, surprises, and pleasure. And each time he found what he seemed to be looking for, he picked it up with his black end of his red beak and carried it, waddling proudly on his wide pink feet, into the kitchen and into the icebox. At last it occurred to Mrs. Popper to wonder what on earth the busy bird was up to. When she looked, she only screamed to Mr. Popper to come quickly and see what Captain Cook had done now. Mr. Popper himself looked rather remarkable, as Mrs. Popper noted later, joining her in staring with the astonishment into the refrigerator. Captain Cook came up too and helped them look. "Ork, ork," he said triumphantly. Mrs. Popper laughed, and Mr. Popper gasped as they saw the results of Captain Cook's trips throughout the house. 2 spools of thread, 1 white chess bishop, and 6 parts of a jigsaw puzzle, a teaspoon and a closed box of safety matches, a radish, 2 pennies, a nickel, a golf ball, 2 pencil stubs, 1 bent playing card, and a small ashtray, 5 hairpins, an olive, 2 dominoes, and a sock, a nail file, 4 buttons of various sizes, a telephone slug, 7 marbles, and a tiny doll chair, 5 checker pieces, a bit of graham cracker, a Parcheesi cup, and an eraser, a door key, a button hook, a crumpled piece of tin foil, half of a very old lemon, a head of a china doll, Mr. Popper's pipe, and a ginger ale cap, an ink bottle cork, 2 screws, and a belt buckle, 6 beads from a child's necklace, 5 building blocks, a darning egg, a bone, a small harmonica, and a partly consumed lollipop, 2 toothpaste lids, and a small red notebook. "Wow, I guess this is what you call a rookie," said Mr. Popper, "only he couldn't find any stones to build his nest with." "Well," said Mrs. Popper, "those penguins may have heathen ways at the South Pole, but I dare say I think this one is going to be quite helpful around the house." "Ork, said Captain Cook, and strutted into the living room. He knocked over their best lamp. "I think, Papa," said Mrs. Popper, "that you had better take Captain Cook outside for a little exercise." "Good gracious, but you're all dressed up. Why, you look almost like a penguin yourself." Mr. Popper had smoothed down his hair and shaved off his whiskers. Never again would Mrs. Popper have to reproach him for looking as wild as a lion. He had put on a white shirt with a white tie and white flannel trousers, and a pair of bright tan oxblood shoes. He had gotten out of the cedar chest his old black evening tailcoats, that he had been married in, and brushed it carefully, and then put it on too. He did indeed look like a penguin. He turned and strutted like one now for Mrs. Popper, but he did not forget his duty to Captain Cook. "Can I have a few yards of clothesline, please, Mama?" asked Mr. Popper.
Okay, so after chapter 7, in chapter 7 they talked about the penguin, Captain Cook, building a rookery. And it's kind of like his little nest. But I found a picture online, and it actually says that they build it with a bunch of big rocks, and a colony of between 5,000 and 10,000 will live within those rocks. And they build nests in there, they lay their eggs in there, they raise their kids in there, and it's just a protective barrier. So what you're going to do on your poster, you're going to see that space right here between, right here in this space, and you're going to draw a rookery right there. So a bunch of big rocks and kind of like a circle. So you can draw those right there. Okay, I drew my rookery, and I tried to shade them in to look like stones and kind of put them in a circle. Remember, they use those to protect themselves. So on the stones, you're going to write favorite things. Your favorite things. If you were building a rookery, what favorite things would you put? Now remember, as Captain Cook went around the house, he was picking up favorite things around the house, anything that he could find. So I want you to write a word on each stone of something that is your favorite thing that you would include in your rookery. Okay, so I filled in with my favorite things. So I have books and pictures and music, because I like to play the piano, so I like music, blankets, slippers, paints and brushes. I like to paint, and you gotta have food. You know, food's your favorite thing. So you're gonna fill out your rookery with all your favorite things. This is what your board should look like so far. We're getting along there. Chapter 7's done.